All right, get ready, because today we're diving deep into something pretty fascinating. The world of information networks. We're going to take a trip through history. From those old campfire stories all the way to the printing press and now the rise of AI. We're going to see how these networks, these information networks, have really shaped human societies.
Yeah, it's a journey that I think takes us to the core of what it means to be human. How we make information, how we share it, and ultimately how we are shaped by it.
Exactly. And to help us on this journey, we have some really awesome source material today. Excerpts from Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari.
It's a book that takes a really broad view
It does, and we're going to weave in some captivating historical anecdotes as we go.
because sometimes it's those small, seemingly insignificant details that reveal these big, profound truths about ourselves.
So true. Okay, let's get into this. Harari starts Nexus with a pretty mind-bending idea that information isn't just about representing reality. It's about connecting and shaping realities. And to illustrate this, he uses an example you might not expect: the Bible.
Yeah, the Bible, as Harari sees it, wasn't just a religious text. It was really like a groundbreaking information technology. It created this huge social network linking people across, continents and even centuries through these shared stories and beliefs.
Wow, that's fascinating. I never thought about the Bible that way. So even these ancient texts weren't just about conveying information, they were tools for building communities and shaping shared realities.
Exactly. And think about how powerful stories are, from those ancient myths to even modern political campaigns. They can bring together millions, billions of people around shared beliefs. And those beliefs might not necessarily be true, at least in a factual sense.
That's interesting. But doesn't that mean that information can be used to manipulate people, to control them with information that might not even be true?
It certainly can. I think the line between truth and order, between facts and the stories we create about them, has always been a bit blurry. And, as we'll see, that tension only gets stronger as our information technologies become even more powerful.
Okay, that's a little unsettling, but it definitely makes you think. So moving on. We humans eventually learn to write things down, which seems like a huge leap forward. But Harari points out that even that came with, unforeseen consequences. And he uses this really cool example. There's a clay tablet from ancient Ur, which meticulously recorded livestock.
But even then, a scribe made a small error, just a couple of animals off in the total count. A simple error, but it makes you think. Human fallibility persists, even when we have new technologies.
So no matter how advanced our tools become, we always bring our human imperfections to the table.
Right? And then there's the challenge of how to manage all that information. How do you even begin to find what you need from mountains of written documents?
Well, that's where bureaucracy comes in, the system that was meant to create order out of chaos. But, sometimes it loses sight of the bigger picture and gets bogged down in its own rules. I think we can all relate to that a bit, right?
Yeah.
We're still dealing with information overload and bureaucratic nightmares today. It feels like we're constantly drowning in information, just trying to find the signal in all the noise.
Totally. And that struggle to make sense of complex systems, to find the right information at the right time. I think that's a theme that runs throughout all of history.
You're right. So you have these ancient societies dealing with all this information, and some people started to think, what if we could eliminate human error? What if there was a way to get truth directly, like divine truth?
Yeah, and that's where the idea of holy books came in. Texts that claim to have, divine inspiration, a way to eliminate that human error and to give people clear and direct guidance.
But did that actually work? Because, history shows that even with these sacred texts, you still had people interpreting things differently, different schools of thought popping up and the growth of these powerful religious institutions.
Well, that's the paradox, isn't it? This quest for a perfect text often led to more complexity, not less. Even with a direct line to the truth, as they believed it to be, humans still brought their own biases and interpretations.
So it seems like bypassing human fallibility has always been, impossible. And it's funny because that idea is still alive today. Just think about how much we trust algorithms, expecting them to be perfectly objective.
Yeah, it's fascinating how we're still searching for that external source of truth. We need something outside of ourselves to tell us what's right and wrong.
But maybe that's just, part of being human. We crave order, certainty, knowing where we stand in the world. Okay, let's fast forward now. The invention of the printing press. Truly revolutionary. This changed everything, right? It made knowledge accessible to everyone.
It did. It democratized knowledge. But it also had some unintended consequences, some darker chapters in the history of information networks.
Like the witch hunts. I remember reading about that.
Exactly. Malleus Maleficarum, this really notorious witch hunting manual. It became a bestseller because of the printing press. It's kind of a chilling reminder that more information doesn't automatically lead to a better world. It can also be used to spread fear and hate and lies.
Wow, that's a sobering thought. So more information could actually lead to more harm. I guess it shows that technology is just a tool. It's up to us to use it wisely.
And to do that, we need critical thinking, media literacy, the ability to know what's true and what's false, especially in a world where information is, everywhere and so easy to manipulate.
And this is where things get really interesting. Harari, he asks us to think of political systems as information networks.
And he compares democracies, which are like these distributed networks, with built-in ways to, like, self-correct, to dictatorships, which are more like centralized networks that focus on control.
So in a democracy, information can flow freely, right? There's debate, there's disagreement.
Yeah.
And the system can, change based on feedback.
Yeah, whereas in a dictatorship, information is tightly controlled. There's no room for dissent. And the main goal is to maintain power no matter what.
And looking back, different technologies have helped different types of regimes, haven't they? Like Athenian democracy relied so much on face-to-face conversations, while totalitarian regimes, like the Soviet Union, they were all about surveillance.
It's amazing how the tools we use to talk to each other, to share information, they can shape the very structure of our societies. And now, with AI, this battle between different types of networks is more important than ever.
Because now we've got this new player in the game, AI, the ultimate networker. And it's not just a tool anymore. AI is becoming a powerful member of the information network. It's making decisions, shaping narratives, even creating whole new realities.
It's true. AI isn't just passive anymore. It's becoming an active participant, shaping what we see, what we believe, even how we think.
And we've already seen how this plays out in the real world, haven't we? Like those Facebook algorithms that, they played a role in inciting violence against the Rohingya in Myanmar. That was back in 2017. And it was a really scary wake-up call about what can happen when AI is used for bad things.
Yeah, it was a major turning point. And as AI becomes more and more sophisticated, these challenges are only going to grow. We have to start asking some tough questions. Like, what does it mean when computers start to make art, to write music, even religious texts? Are we entering some kind of computer-driven mythology?
Those are some big questions, and I think that's a good place to wrap up part 1 of our deep dive. We've covered a lot, but we've only scratched the surface. When we come back, we're going to go even deeper into the world of AI. We'll explore the good and the bad, and talk about what we can do to make sure that this incredibly powerful technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
Welcome back. So in part 1, we were talking about AI, starting to generate its own stuff, like art and music, even religious texts.
Yeah.
And that brings up some pretty crazy possibilities. It does. And, Harari actually takes this idea even further. He says that AI could, create entirely new religions.
Whoa.
With scriptures written by algorithms. I know it sounds a little sci-fi, but when you think about how stories and myths have always shaped what people believe, it's not that far-fetched.
I guess so, but could AI really, hack our beliefs by creating these messages that, appeal to our deepest desires or fears?
I mean, it's possible. It makes you question what belief even means. If it's, designed by an algorithm, is that real faith? Or is it something else entirely?
And imagine these AI myths, spreading online. It could become really hard to tell what's real and what's fake.
Oh, absolutely. Or definitely add to the misinformation problem we were talking about.
You worry.
And we're already seeing AI being used to create deepfakes and manipulate information in ways that are getting harder and harder to detect.
Yeah, it feels like a whole new level of information warfare.
It is.
But couldn't AI also be used to, fight misinformation? Couldn't we use it to, find and flag fake news?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research on that right now, using AI for fact-checking and things like that. But it's a really complex problem, and even the most advanced AI can still be fooled.
And I guess there's always the problem of bias, too, right?
There is.
You mean, human biases in the AI?
Well, yeah, because AI is trained on data, and that data can reflect our own biases, as a society. For example, if an AI is trained on data with, say, gender stereotypes, then it might learn to, perpetuate those stereotypes.
Oh, I see. So garbage in, garbage out.
Basically, yeah.
And what kind of problems could that cause?
Oh, all sorts of problems. I mean, we've already seen AI systems being used in ways that discriminate against certain groups of people, like in hiring or loan applications, even in the justice system. And as AI becomes more powerful, This is only going to become more important to address.
So if we're not careful, AI could actually make inequality worse, not better.
Exactly.
So what can we do about this? How do we, like, prevent AI bias?
Well, I think the first step is just awareness. We have to be aware that bias is a possibility and make a real effort to build AI that's fair.
So being careful about the data used to train AI.
Yeah, and developing techniques to, like, identify and fix bias.
And what about, like, regulations or something? Are there any guidelines for developing AI responsibly?
There are, yeah. Lots of governments and organizations are working on that. Ethical frameworks, guidelines for AI, things like transparency, accountability, fairness. But it's still early days.
It feels like we're at this really crucial moment where we need to have these conversations and, get things right.
We do, because the stakes are so high. We're talking about decisions that could have a huge impact on people's lives.
Yeah, and that brings us back to the alignment problem. How do we make sure that AI has the same goals as us? Especially when it comes to these really important things.
It's a really tough question. I don't think there's one easy answer. But it's something we need to be thinking about constantly. One approach is to involve lots of different perspectives. When we're building AI, so it reflects a broader range of values.
That makes sense.
And we also need to make AI systems that are transparent, so we can understand how they're making decisions.
And hold them accountable when things go wrong.
Exactly, because things will go wrong, inevitably.
No system is perfect.
And we need to be prepared for that. Have ways to identify and fix AI errors, and to know who is responsible when harm is caused.
Right. So we've talked about bias and the alignment problem. Hraley also talks about this, like, scary possibility of AI-powered surveillance states, where everything we do is tracked and our lives are, like, scored based on our behavior. Is that something we should really be worried about?
It's definitely something to be aware of. I mean, we're already seeing the beginnings of this in some places, like facial recognition being used for surveillance, and things like social credit systems to track and control what people do.
That sounds terrifying, like out of a dystopian novel. What happens to freedom in a world like that?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's not just about privacy, it's about power. Who controls these systems? How are they being used? And what are the consequences?
It's a lot to think about. I think it's important to remember that technology is always a double-edged sword. It can be used for good or for bad.
Absolutely.
It all depends on the choices we make.
And that's why it's so important to be talking about this now, while we still have time to shape the future of AI.
Okay, so we've focused a lot on the risks, but there's a lot of potential good that can come from AI too.
There is.
So what are some of the ways AI could actually make our lives better?
I mean, the possibilities are endless. AI could revolutionize healthcare with faster and more accurate diagnoses, personalized treatments, even cures for diseases we don't understand yet.
Wow.
It could change education with personalized learning for every student. It could transform transportation with self-driving cars that are safer.
That would be amazing.
And it could even help us tackle huge problems like climate change and poverty.
So how do we make sure that all this good stuff happens and we avoid the bad stuff?
I think it comes back to those key principles: transparency, accountability, and fairness. We have to be careful and deliberate about how we develop AI. We have to, think ahead about potential problems, build in safeguards, and always question our assumptions.
Yeah, we need to be humble because this is a really powerful technology.
We do.
We don't have all the answers,
Right.
and we need to be open to learning as we go. And these are conversations we need to have with everyone.
I agree, from the people making the laws to, everyday people.
Because in the end, the future of AI is up to all of us.
It is.
The choices we make will have consequences for, generations to come.
That's a powerful thought. And it actually brings us to another idea from Hraley: unfathomability. He argues that AI is getting so complex that even the experts don't fully understand how it works.
Unfathomability, what does that even mean?
Well, he uses the example of AlphaGo, this AI that beat the world champion at Go, which is like a really complex game.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
So there's this one move AlphaGo made,
Yeah.
and it totally confused all the experts. It was a brilliant move, but nobody could figure out why the AI did it. It was like the AI was thinking on a level that we couldn't even grasp.
That's both fascinating and a little scary. What happens when AI is making decisions that affect us, but we don't even understand why?
It raises some serious questions about how much we can trust these systems and how we hold them accountable.
Especially when things go wrong.
Right, because, like I said, things will go wrong.
Yeah.
And we need to be ready. We need to be able to find and fix those errors, and we need to know who is responsible.
Okay.
We need a whole new way of thinking about ethics in the age of AI.
Because the old rules might not work anymore.
Exactly.
All right, one last mind-blowing thing before we wrap up part 2. Hraley says that AI isn't just a tool, it's becoming a new kind of agent.
An agent that can act on its own, pursue its own goals, and even change the world around it. He compares it to like the rise of corporations, how they started as tools for businesses, but then became these powerful entities.
Right, with their own rights and responsibilities.
Yeah.
And he's saying AI might do the same thing.
It's possible.
That's wild. What happens if AI becomes so powerful that, it's beyond our control?
That's the big question. And it's one we're going to have to face as we move further into this age of AI.
All right, listener, that's a good place to take a break and think about what we've discussed. In this part, we talked about everything from AI religions to algorithmic bias, to the possibility of AI becoming like this new force in the world. When we come back, we'll talk about what we can do to navigate all of this and make sure that AI is used for good.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive into information networks and AI. This is our final part. We've had some pretty mind-blowing conversations, right?
Oh, yeah.
About how these networks have shaped us. Yeah, it's incredible how they can amplify our strengths, but also expose our weaknesses.
For sure.
And now with AI, it's like a whole new set of challenges.
It really is a turning point for humanity.
It is.
So let's get practical for a minute. We've explored the good and the bad, but what can we actually do to make sure AI is, a force for good and doesn't turn into some kind of overlord?
Well, I think one of the most important things is AI literacy. Not everyone needs to be a programmer or anything, but we need to understand the basics, like how it works, what AI can and can't do, and the potential for both good and bad.
So we can't just blindly trust it, right?
Right.
We have to be informed.
Yeah.
Think critically about how it's being used.
Exactly. We need to ask the right questions, evaluate the information we're given, and make informed decisions about how AI fits into our lives.
And that starts with education, doesn't it?
It does.
We need to be teaching kids about AI from a young age. Not just the technical stuff, but the ethics of it all, the impact on society.
Yeah, like driver's ed, but for the information age.
Haha, I like that.
It's about giving people the tools to be responsible users and creators of AI.
Okay, so education is key. But Hraley also talks about regulations and guidelines.
Yeah, he does.
What would those look like for AI?
Well, I think we need some clear rules for how AI is developed and used. Things like maybe algorithmic auditing, making sure our data privacy laws are strong, and maybe even banning certain AI applications that are just too risky.
Like limits on AI in warfare.
Yeah.
Or those surveillance systems we talked about.
Those are definitely things we need to discuss. We have to carefully consider the benefits of AI, but also the risks, and make sure we're not creating something we'll regret later.
It's like we need to be proactive.
Yes.
Not wait for things to go wrong and then try to fix them.
Exactly, because once these technologies are out there,
Yeah.
it's really hard to put the genie back in the bottle.
So education, regulations, being careful. What about things individuals can do to, make sure AI is used for good?
Well, I think one thing we can all do is just be aware of our own biases,
Oh, interesting.
because we all have them. And they can subtly influence how we use AI.
So we could actually be making the bias problem worse without even realizing it.
Yeah, it's possible.
Uh-huh.
Think about the information you share online, the choices you make, how you interact with AI systems. It all contributes.
We need to be responsible digital citizens.
Exactly.
And we should also be, demanding more from the companies using AI, right? Demanding transparency,
Really?
accountability.
Yeah. Yes. Don't be afraid to ask questions, raise concerns, and hold them accountable when things go wrong.
All right, listener, here's your call to action. Get informed, get involved, make your voice heard. The future of AI is in your hands.
It really is. It's not going to be easy, though.
Yeah.
There will be disagreements, setbacks, even mistakes, but we have to keep talking about this, keep pushing for progress, and always remember that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used in different ways.
And ultimately, the choice is ours. And that wraps up our deep dive into information networks and AI. We hope this has given you a better understanding of how these networks have shaped us, from those ancient stories all the way to, the age of AI.
And we hope it's inspired you to think critically, to ask questions, and to get involved.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.